Hi, this is another video. Another day, another video. Right, this one is about the working class in the UK. It's been given nothing, or not. It's an exaggeration to say nothing the last 80 years, but if you look at the last 40 years, maybe it's not. Last 80 years, very little. I can't deny that there used to be student grants that used to get working class in, but they've gone now. So, that just made it so much easier for people that got to uni. Now, there's just we haven't got free housing or anything. So there's people, live with the parents forever. I know that feels. And there's people who I'm worried about going to uni because of the student loan things, tuition fees, all of that. There's no universal basic income. And some of our achievements, when I list our achievements, I notice how far back they are. Like free education for 4016, the NHS. So you see from 1945 seemed to be a bit different with that introduction of the welfare state and the NHS, free universal free health care at the point of use. And I think that, was only because so much suffering had happened in World War II that the propaganda didn't work. It did propaganda about why we can't do this, how expensive it is, and how the state's limited and what it can do. Just sounded so stupid at that time. But it's the same now. It's just we think we some people fall for that crap. And so, as well as having very little for the last 80 years and almost nothing for 40 years, but the propaganda doesn't stop. So it's like they're giving you absolutely nothing, and yet they're saying, validate us, consume us, live us, vote for our parties. The world is good. And don't you just know it? Because you have to like us, because we're never going to go away anyway. So just be blind and think the propaganda is actually reality. Now, the propaganda is getting seen through. There's no doubt about that. But the thing is it ever getting seen through quite enough? Because I notice in like France and stuff, what they try to do is vote them out. But the state can't be voted out. You can't get rid. So then you get riots. Because in France they say, well, you can't get, we wanted to get rid of you, you ignored us. And the politicians that are elected say, no, you didn't, you voted for us. It's wonderful, isn't it? It just goes on and on and on and on and on. And they say, we were voting against remoteness in bloody Paris when we live 1,000 miles away. And I go, that wasn't on the ballot paper, mate. Sorry, you didn't really. So you see what I mean? Even if the interpretation of what had gone on is that they wanted to get rid of the remoteness, wanted to get rid of the state, wanted to get rid of the powerful news media and all the political parties and all that sort of thing. They just re-emerge in a different form. And then they say, well, you voted for us then. The old lot that went out, they agree with the people now, but it's all a game because they're just part of that as well, aren't they? Because if they'd bloody won, they would have just been sitting the same as the ones that, you see, they accept the reality once they've lost power. They start talking more. Yeah, we can see what you're saying and all that. But for example, the press, the tabloid press, when it does gutter journalism, the tabloids, they sort of like admit what they do on TV programs but they also admit that they wouldn't have said that when they had the power. You don't admit to being a wanker when you sell stuff. It's not gonna work, is it? But after you've finished, you can say it. And some people don't mind. Some people don't mind how they look as much as others. So them types just tell the truth after they've finished being, a WANKR. So the propaganda matrix is just fixed in place and it needs to go, because what it's doing is it's dividing people and claiming freedom. It's brainwashing people and claiming freedom for these people. It's not interested in our freedom. It's interested in their own power and control. That's all it's interested in. All it's interested in is their own megaphone voice and their own status, their own wealth, their own income, their own power and control over the masses. Now, if this propaganda they use for power and control to keep that going, to create the buzzwords, the labels, the mantras, to keep it going, repetition, their missions, to keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. And that's what they do. What they don't want to do is ever have to confess that that they're doing propaganda games. So what they do, what they have got in, if they're ever seen through, is the military. Then they would think, well, you've seen through us now. We can't deny it because there's so many of you've seen through us. So we'll just get the army out and we'll just kill you. So that's their backup plan. But they never need to do it because the propaganda's never been sufficiently seen through. So if you said to me marks out of 10 for them on intelligence, I'd have to score them high, but they misapply it. They have no conscience. And you have to give them decent marks or high marks for having created a system that benefits them for seemingly ever. You can't say that that's fake, but you can say it is totally immoral, totally criminal, totally corrupt, totally without conscience. A propaganda system that succeeds, but should we fail, will kill you with the army, is not something to admire. So, and I reckon probably in World War II they perfected some of the propaganda. I just think I've just seen the comment. Go on, mate, you tell them. Then, yeah, that's basically the video, though. I mean, most of our videos do last longer than this, if you look at them. Yeah, that's basically. I mean, the UK. It's not quite true to say they never ever give us anything because they don't want the state to collapse. So they sometimes have to buy us off. So during the lockdown in COVID, had to do something like furlough. Otherwise, if the entire society collapses, that threatens those at the top. So they have to buy them off, so that they don't have to get to that stage where they send the military out. I'm looking forward to the print press dying because I reckon they had quite a hold. I mean, when the Sun in 1992 said it's the Sun what won it, they really did. and then when the Murdoch press defected to Labour, I noticed it in 97, Labour won it. I think they did it twice. So but they're all in the same game, then political parties, so it doesn't really make any difference. But now them print sales are down, so I don't think newspapers can do that in the UK anymore. I don't think they can win it for anyone. I mean, you can say the state continues, so they do win anyway, but not in that most blatantly obvious sense. Can they win it? So it's like that's dying off, but the state superstructure carries on. I don't know how we eventually kill this thing off, other than hoping that. I mean, this sounds horrible because I don't think everyone's just going to grow in consciousness or something in some kind of spiritual sense, and we're all going to. I don't think that's likely, but it's connected though. When you think about if the middle class collapsed, or if it went close to collapse from something like the AI revolution, I don't know if that will happen. Then I don't think the state can survive without the middle class support. Well, it might get that army out, but that is the best. The best hope is a negative. A negative thing happens, that the middle class loses complete faith in the state. So rather than just thinking of themselves as socially a bit to the left, socially liberal and on money issues just a tad to the left, the middle class does seem to have shifted slightly over the last 40 years, but nevertheless still more or less like I don't know. I think there's a bit of vibe there for people like Obama and middle class, slightly progressive types, and I just think that just props up the state and it doesn't do any good. you don't get peace and you don't get equality, do you? You've still got a warmongering state and you've still got a vastly unequal state where you've got billionaires at the top when about Well, I've heard some people say 6, and I've heard others saying it's a bit less than 30. Of the richest billionaires in the world could have as much wealth and income as the bottom 3 or 4 billion. You know, that them sort of figures. Now, and then they say that they can't afford redistribution. I don't understand it. I really don't. It's like, how can that be possible? I mean, this not afford thing is just a myth. It's just a myth. The Victorians used to say it before we had free education, free health, and stuff like that. Before it was a welfare state. So it's just the same thing being said later on. It's just like, I mean, America says it now, they can't afford free universal healthcare, and yet every nation in Western Europe seems to be able to do so. So does that mean the states aren't as rich as we think they were in some kind of second world society? Just a lie. It's a lie that some people believe, though. The only thing I think that is true is you need to curb inflation. But I mean, that isn't an excuse not to bring these things in. Could have said that for everything. It just means you have to be careful how you do it. Sort of like when you tax. I mean, sorry, when you spend, you also tax. So you don't overheat the economy. That's all that is. I mean, a few economists can handle that, can handle the inflation side, and the rest, and the people educated on the social side get on with the social side, which is often neglected by those who have been educated, like in economics. So you get on all the sociologists, all the political scientists, all that. They just say all the people, creative artist types. They know that all these people are just shunted, like as if all they're meant to do is express themselves all the time, whether they're achieving anything. It's just enough is enough. I mean, it's not just it's not just the academics and the educated and the universities teachers. The whole working class needs this as well, and the middle class do as well. Really, they're always like half in, half out. It's only the elites that want it like it is. But the thing is, because of the propaganda, some people get brainwashed, and that splits us slightly. And then years later, the brainwashed realise that their mistake, because eventually stuff gets brought in. So eventually, when you get universal healthcare comes in, those who were slagging it off in the past because they were brainwashed, in the 30s. They were brainwashed in the 30s, for instance, in the UK. They'll say, yeah, I realise it now. So this propaganda, therefore, sets us back decades. It could set us back 100 years. I mean, what do we need? A world war in order to see through the next set of to see through the propaganda we experience now? Enough is enough. It's just like, I mean, there's something by Caitlin Johnston that I like here. I mean, she often goes on about the war stuff and national things like that. And she said she imagines someone who's clearly brainwashed saying, Chinese people live in a freakish, backwards, mind-controlled dystopia where dissent in thought is crushed and everyone's brainwashed by propaganda. And the person says to him, oh yeah, how do you know? And the brainwashed guy says, come on, man. It's all over the news all day, every day. I think that's really good. Just to ram it home, in case someone doesn't understand. The brainwashed person is brainwashed by propaganda because he or she gets told what to think by the news media. And yeah, the irony won't be lost on anyone. I don't think of that one. It's quite simple. And of course, she also says something. She got another joke. I won't try and tell a joke in case I mess it up and forget it. But she says basically that if you live in a nation where you kind of think that you are being propagandized, well, that's maybe close to the norm. Might not be the norm, but it's close. It's closer than it is here. Then that's not very good propaganda. The best propaganda nations are those that do not know they're being propagandized. They're the ones they're the ones who are the most intelligent at propaganda. I mean, that is ideal. If you want to be intelligent and corrupt at the same time, you would want a nation like this, like the UK or the US, where enough people are asleep. You don't want a nation where they're all threatening to rise up against you, do you? So you want it like that. I mean, what kind of world do we live in where people cannot see that the best propaganda is ones that you cannot tell exists? Does it really believe that the only propagandist nations are like North Korea? It must have a really poor opinion about propagandists' intelligence levels. Why don't they think that any propagandists are very smart and can pull the wool over your eyes? Not all fake. Like I said, that it's not. I don't think in political world it's a battle between intelligent people and unintelligent people. I think it's intelligent people with a conscience versus intelligent people with no conscience. And it's easier for the no conscience types because they can almost do and say anything, and they just have to keep the status quo. Because if you just keep the status quo, then that's your success. So they don't actually have to do as much in real terms in real life. Whereas those who want to change a lot, they're the ones who are going to get propaganda aimed at them, like rocks being thrown at them every day, if not a landmines, like going through a landmine trying to do stuff there. I mean, imagine imagine for a second, just imagine that Caitlin Johnston's right, because I think she is, but just imagine she's right, whether you do or not, and that America is trying to be like an empire, and it's a warmongering nation, and it's an oligarchy. Like, just imagine that's right, whether you think it is or not. Can you imagine how difficult that is to change people's minds, given that they are American? It's like people would prefer to be a little bit more positive, yeah. And then imagine how easy it is to just stick with the status quo and to just criticize that all the time by being dismissive. Don't even have to make a good argument. You can just say, "Oh, that anti-American rubbish. Oh, not interested in that. Oh, can't stand it. Why don't they go and live in Russia?" You know what I mean? It's so easy. It's so easy to take that stance. Yeah, it's unfair, and therefore this is why you see all the achievements that we have in life, whether it's getting women the vote. I mean, can you imagine the sexist and also the anti-class things with the working class getting the vote? Can you imagine the things that used to be said? Like, oh, what's the point of giving them the vote? They're too thick to get anywhere. Or to go to uni. What's the point of letting them go to uni? I mean, they're too thick. So the vote will start a rabble, and we'll just be all chaos. And universities, the working class and working class women won't be able to get a qualification because they're too unintelligent. And can't you see they can't read and write? That sort of thing. And to go from not being able to read and write to getting a degree does sound good. And you can imagine the efforts to stop these people making progress by saying, what is the point? They're just fake. I mean, because they would have then confused it by sort of like saying, I hear the progressives saying that this is just the environment they're born into and the lack of opportunities. How about genetics? Then to bring that up to just confuse people, think, maybe it's the right. We know now that it's wrong. But yeah, but I mean, that's what I'm saying. It takes so long to defeat these arguments because it's just their opinion. That's what we're meant to accept. I just don't think that's fair either. That it's just my opinion is a kind of way of saying that those blocking all that stuff is just as valid as giving them what is their rights. And it's more or less saying it's not their rights, really. It's just their opinion. We can let them rot forever, basically. Well, they won't ever word it like that. They word it they're not intelligent enough. They don't deserve the vote because they wouldn't use it properly. There'll be a rabble, and there's some things. I mean, at least Americans can see that Europeans have free healthcare, right? So they've got some point of comparison. But on things like pacifism, we've got nowhere because we can't see anyone who's like really a good example to us because they all bloody chip in. So we're really we are still in the Victorian sort of mindset where it was like with money issues. We're like Victorians on the military and war stuff, which we're meant to think is so great. because we're innocent, of course. We're born here by coincidence. We're the good guys. We're the innocent people. We never do anything wrong. Carl Jung, he was a really smart guy. He says, don't you just note this? He says, every nation's saying that. All their people are saying that. So if you were born anywhere, you'd be saying that. Carl Jung said that. And Carl Jung isn't known as some great progressive. But he saw the obvious, because it's bloody common sense. Maybe it's because he's a psychologist, he's not subjected to so much, he's not, able to be propagandized and manipulated as easy. That just came across to him as pretty damned obvious, without delving into politics. But it's strange how other people don't see it. Just don't see it. They're just brainwashed, and even when you point out to them wherever they were born, they'd be brainwashed. They'll think, oh yeah, but it just so happens that I'm not brainwashed because I was born here. If I'd been born there, I'd be brainwashed. So I can see your point there, brainwashed. But then they just exclude themselves. And I'm thinking, oh God, no. So on money issues, we made some progress on and opportunities, but on military, no progress. But from getting rid of the state superstructure, the vast inequality, getting rid of all the wars, getting rid of the massive income inequality, even despite the bit of progress he made, and getting rid of the power difference and how it enables. Hitler said he quite likes the UK state because, I can't remember if he expanded on that and explained, but he might have done. If he did, he will. I bet he'll have said this. I'm pretty confident I know why. He thinks he'd have been able to take over it quite easily. It's like it's set up nicely for a bit of a dictatorship here. And therefore, what I'm saying there is that we've got, not that we're Nazis, we don't gas our enemies or anything, kill them en masse, but we've got a system that's enabling for vile. That's what I'm saying. And and I think Hitler would have recognised there's inequality in the UK. And he probably thought, well, yeah, we'd be able to stuff the Jews quite easily, wouldn't we? They could do it in Germany anyway. So, but I'm saying he says that Britain is right for that as well. Oh, vile, but I just think now that if it'd be worth it. It's a horrible thing to say, I know, but it'd be worth it for the middle class to collapse. Not because I haven't got a class prejudice against the middle class. Not at all. I want the middle. I think the middle class and working class need to be together. Otherwise, there's no hope. That's my proof that I haven't got a prejudice against them. But if they don't, if they just secure and this AI revolution doesn't happen, and I'm wondering where the hope comes from. That's all I can think of. I don't see just rising in consciousness enough on it, relying on that itself. Some people might say, oh, but there has been change over the decades, but for as much change as what's needed here, I don't think so. I still think that the educated working class who then become middle class, or the middle class who just stay middle class, are still aspiring to be, would aspire to be work within the state for a career rather than bring it down. So I do think it needs some suffering, to be honest. And I hope I'm wrong, and that like people are more progressive than ever before and will bring this thing down by bringing it down. I don't mean a violent revolution. I mean like something like we sort of like don't look to Downing Street, Parliament, Prime Minister, and certainly not the press, for guidance or anything, which would mean that somehow you'd have to take power, do stuff, and then decentralize on mass, like with people's courts all in the country, or uphold this new constitution where no one has massive power. I always say that the most power, like the news media have, is local news level that they have now, like you see with local news. That can imagine how much less power, and local news, whether it's TV or local newspapers, I can imagine how much less power they have than in the Rupert Murdoch press, which is global and has had a megaphone to millions for decades. Or the I like to CNN and Sky News. Sky News, I think Murdoch's got that in Britain. I think so. Yeah, he has done. It has in the past. I think it might still have so. The dying print press is going, but the news media corporations are still absolutely mega huge, and I think this is why I get a feeling that they're propagandist, whereas the local news, although I might be a bit bored by it, I think that it's innocent. I don't see any propaganda there in the local news. I certainly don't have trust issues with it. And I think a lot of people get that they have trust issues with the national stuff, but not the local stuff. So I think that could stay. There's risks. There's risks like if people who think similar and me got power, that they would just grab it and rather than set up the people's courts and the constitution and all that. And that's not something I advocate for, because that would probably end up being maybe just similar. I mean, if that's what they did, that's what they would do. If they're just grabbing it and that's it, if it's for themselves, can't deny it. There's definite risk there, because some people point out that no power's ever given up power voluntarily, which doesn't sound very promising, does it? And again, I think there's got to be hope for having peace and equality. It's not something that should be so hated or anything. It's such an uphill challenge, because I don't like using the terms left and right and all that and all these labels, because they're part of that propaganda matrix that they use to maintain their power and everything. But I can't word it another way. So there's a split on the left between a fake system left and the real authentic left, and the fake system left has to be thought of as fake because they preside over the same gross power, wealth, income inequality as, I don't know, the liberal right. What's the difference? I can't see any difference. Some people go like this to say, oh, it's a tiny bit. I can't see that even. I can't even see that. I literally can't see any difference between the liberal system right and the liberal system left. And maybe it's a vibe. Maybe there's a vibe difference. But that's not real. So if you're talking about real, I can't see any difference. And maybe there's a difference in the demographics, perhaps. Even that. But again, no real difference to everyday people's lives in terms of wealth, power, in terms of voice. Some can reach millions, some can't even reach 20 on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. And then which is why I prefer the local news to be the top level. And also the similar thing with billionaires and people at the bottom. The liberal left aren't going to change that. No chance. So I think that they're fake left. So I think the left is split, and where it's split, other than between real and fake, is between so like you've got, say, the academics and the working class. That's split because some fall for it and others don't fall for it. And some of those that don't fall for it vote for the system liberal left anyway, and therefore validate it and get that. What happens then? the people that they don't rate start saying, no, see, they voted for us. We're great. They like us. Why would they vote for us if they didn't? Why would they go out in the bloody pouring rain? So, like, they're just full of shite. But this is our problem. I actually think that our enemies are the system liberal left, because they're the ones who bloody well propping all this up. They shouldn't be doing what they're doing, but they're either brainwashed or they think, oh well, at least got the vibe. We've got the vibe. Feels good. Feels a bit interesting. It's not. It's not. It's just that's part of the propaganda. That's falling for it. That's what the system wants you to do. That's what the billionaire capitalists want you to do. There's tons of bloody billionaires and rich people who are like very liberal. They're just not. They're not got any prejudices against black people or gays and lesbians, and that's credit to them. But they don't mind the warmongering. They don't mind nuclear brinkmanship. They don't mind the vast income inequality. They don't mind the vast difference in how much voice people have got. They keep the substance, the meaty stuff going there. As Caitlin Johnston said, a lot of this stuff should be treated like they're as bad as or worse than the Ku Klux Klan, such as the warmongering. But they're not, because it's normalized. So then you get you might get a trendy liberal lefty saying, I quite like the warmongering part of it. It's with the vibe, isn't it? So that's the problem there. I think that's the video. I'm just going around in circles. And it's lasted about 25 minutes longer than I was planning. So, so just to conclude, I think the middle class collapse, and we need to, and this is, I'm saying this without knowing how, the next bit especially, we need to convince the system liberal left that they are bonkers without insulting them. Otherwise they'll never come over. And I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to, because I mean, like I said, there's a lot of people who seemingly are intelligent. So therefore they stand their ground and stuff. So you can't just like, come here, do what's saying. If you say that to them, they're going to get offended, patronized, and shout back at you like you're arrogant or something. And you're thinking like, how do we get peace and equality without arguing that you're in a system left that's backing up all the inequality? You can't do it. It's impossible. You go around. It's enough to make you bang your head against the wall. But I think the propaganda matrix has been successful for themselves, and that's how come we get these problems. Caitlin Johnston says, just keep fighting back at it. Use their tactics back against the propaganda matrix, which she says be the jerk in the cinema that's shouting at all actors on stage. So she's basically saying use their tactics of repetition, propaganda, that they use against people, use it against them. And I think she thinks that could split people in supporting of them. She's trying to reverse it all. It needs a heck of a lot of Caitlin Johnstons, though. So she's right in what she's saying. And, otherwise, I would think, well, she should just shut up. But I don't think she should shut up. I think she should keep on doing it. She's saying that lots of people should keep doing that. And maybe one day this will snowball on social media or something like that, and people will see sense. But it's a massive struggle, isn't it? It's a massive struggle. So that's the video anyway. Bye for now.